I want to welcome everyone this evening. I'm going to call the Finance and Budget Committee meeting for November to order. I have requested that Sheriff Hilder do us the pleasure of prayer and pledge this evening. Sheriff Hilder.
Wow, just the landscape, the canvas you painted for us, it's breathtaking, and truly thankful for that. God, thanks for the opportunities to serve our fellow man. God, we know that that's what we're here for, and I just thank you for those opportunities. Pray now for the court, members of the court, as they discuss important issues to our county, the citizens and employees. Just pray for your guidance, and I pray all these things in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sheriff Hilder. Now we'll move to the adoption of the agenda. I have an item that I need to move that we add. Ms. Patty had sent this out to us earlier, but it is resolution item number 21R-10. Do I have a second to add that item?
Second.
Second by J.P. Simons. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Do we have we will make that new item number 18. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved.
I have a motion by J.P. Duncan. Second by J.P. Johnson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The agenda is adopted. Now for our monthly reports. Treasurer Hill.
Treasurer's Financial Summary 4.1. Had another good month. We're maintaining healthy balances in, well, our big three accounts, but most accounts as well. Ending balance in the general fund, $12.2 million. We did get tax settlement this month. So right now we're at $16.7 million in the general fund as of today. At the end of this report, we began with $90.7 million in the bank, ended with $94.3 million. 4.2, the property taxes received. In October, we got in $1.6 million. That's a little bit above 2020. And we've already, like I said before, we've already got the November settlement in, and it was 5.475 compared to 5.358 last year. So doing well in property taxes. 4.3, the 1 cent sales tax. This is the first month with the new census. Like I said last month, we went from 18.39 to 16.47% of the 1 cent tax. And that equals, if it hadn't been for the census, well, we dropped about 90,000 this month. That 105% at the far right, if it had been a normal month, it had been 12.84% up. But I'm surprised we're actually above last year. So I look back at 2011, the first month that the census took effect, we had a 20% drop. So could be worse. 4.4, the quarter cent jail tax. Again, doing very well, 12.84% above last year. And for the year, we're $1,352,000 over 2020. 4.5, the local distribution of sales tax. The biggest percentage gain was restaurants and other eating places. 4.6, half-cent road tax. Doing very well, 16.25% just this month alone. 14.14 for the year. And we should make projection next month with a month to spare. 4.7, just comparisons, January through October for the past 3 years. As you can tell, it's doing real well, especially 2021, and You can tell 27.8 million in general revenue compared to 25.7 in expenses. And after November, when our large property tax settlement comes in, that revenue gap will even widen even more. 4.8, these are my final updated revenues for your consideration to add into the budget this year. I did make one assumption that if you look at the very first line on county general carryover, it says 10.7 million. I took 4 million from that and added down below to the 1001 general reserve. So if the ordinance coming up doesn't pass, then the general carryover will be 14,750, and the general reserve will go back down to 7.5. Finally, 4.9. This is the budget summary, just from everything y'all have approved so far. I think Comptroller Worthen put this note up here. It says includes J.P. Ecky's amendments to the budget from the coroner and assessor. I believe that's the only change. But as you can see, even with the drop, even with us moving $4 million to the general reserve fund, we still have $3 million in unappropriated reserves in the general fund. So, and our fund infusions for the jail is way down this year compared to past years. And that 911 fund, we've discussed that before. It's coming up short on the revenue, so that's the reason we might need to do an infusion at some point. Anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you, Treasurer Hill. Are there any questions for our treasurer? J.P. Lemming?
Is the 9/11 because of the cell phone tax we get off of that?
Why it's dropped?
Yes.
Well, they had sweeping changes to legislation 2 years ago, but adding a lot of money to 911, but the county doesn't get any of that at this time. And they also had big payments to, I think, AT&T 4 straight years. Might have been a cell tower type issue, I'm not sure, but that's the reason for the decline.
Any more questions? J.P. Essery?
Thank you. I noticed that we've not had a jail infusion, but if you put in the numbers for the number of people that are not employed currently with the county, if you add those back, we're going to be back in the same boat we were. I mean, I'm just kind of pointing that out as that's the reason why.
That's the reason we have such healthy balances right now.
Right.
Going into next year, a lot of that is due for coming up short as far as the jail employees.
Any further questions? Thank you, Treasurer Hill.
Thank you.
The Employees Insurance Report, Mr. Driver.
Good evening, everyone. The Employee Health Fund beginning balance at the 1st of October was $3,474,592. We ended the month with $3,439,365. So we dropped a little over $35,000 claims versus revenue going into the fund. We're still healthy. We've still got November and December left to go for claims, and as I mentioned in the last report, this is typically the time when people start having elective procedures done that they've put off until they've met their calendar year deductibles. So we won't know what those look like until sometime in January or February. But right now the fund is holding its own, and I don't have any recommendations as far as changing any of the revenue side premium increases or anything at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Driver. Are there any questions? J.P. Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Driver. Do you have anything new to report to us on the insurance claims on the roofs in the last month?
J.P. Johnson, I'm not involved in the claims process with the county buildings. That's being handled by the chief of staff and the building and grounds person. I'm not involved in that.
So that's outside the scope of your agreement with the county?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Mr. Driver? Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Comptroller's report. Comptroller Worthing. Before you start, will you do me a favor and go ahead and pull that microphone a little bit closer to you? So, maybe pull it down a little bit too.
Okay. 6.1 is the summary statement of operations, expenses by fund and department. All the details there in your packet, and we should be at, if expenses were linear, at about 83%, and there aren't really any budgets that look to be in trouble at this point. And then on the next page, the actual percentages spent for general fund is 71.7%. And then if you scroll down to the last page, overall for the whole county, we're at 61.6%. Then then 6.2 is the unappropriated reserve balance report, and it reflects the ordinances that were passed last month. The salary sweep added money back to the reserves, and then we had a few ordinances for the tasers and other things that took money out, and we ended up with general fund at 3.5 million and the general reserve at 7.9 million, less the reserve set aside for jail fund leaves a net balance in general of 10.3 million. And that's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Comptroller Worthing? Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. We have one item of unfinished business, and that is item number 7, an ordinance appropriating $256,000 from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund to the pass-through payments line item in the 2021 American Rescue Plan Act budget for the Homestead subdivision. J.P. Wilson.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that we table this item until the January meeting, our finance and budget meeting in January.
Second.
I have a motion to table until the January finance and budget meeting by J.P. Wilson, a second by J.P. Duncan. All those in favor? J.P. Simons? Sorry, just a second. J.P. Simons?
Thank you, Chair. Since this is a non-government entity, does this need to come before county services? It has.
J.P. Wilson, let's cue your mic up, please.
It has gone before county services and has been forwarded from there.
Okay.
The reason I'm asking that we table it is that we were trying to have an application process and to have things that are non-governmental go through that process to be considered. And that hasn't really taken off at this point. And so I'm just asking that we table it for 2 months till we see if we can get that off the ground.
Understood.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That'll be postponed until the January finance and budget meeting. New business. Item number 8 is an ordinance amending ordinance 2018-64 to implement necessary adjustments to the law enforcement step pay plan. As you guys know, by the ordinance referenced, we have a step pay plan here in Washington County for the enforcement side of the sheriff. and every couple of years that plan is reevaluated. And I would invite Sheriff Helder up tonight if you have any comments, not to put you on the spot, but to talk to this, maybe give it some more background. Push the little man. There you go.
So, from a historical perspective, this took place 4 years ago, perhaps, and it was a time when we were trying to find parity with our certified law enforcement division to stop the bleeding as far as transferring, going a mile up the road and getting about a 20 to 25% increase in salary, about 15% to go one more city north. So what was settled on was to mirror Fayetteville Police Department's step plan. And what that does, it creates categories for each position within the law enforcement group. For instance, if they never promoted and they stayed as a DFC, there are steps within that category. But for the most part, we mirror Fayetteville PD, and then every couple of years, Mr. Johansson and the court has the opportunity to review the plan and to continue to mirror Fayetteville to see what they've done, and so that's what this year is. It mirrors Fayetteville's plan.
Are there any questions for Sheriff Helder on this? J.P. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some questions. How much, do we know what the cost is to go from the current plan to this plan?
Do you
And
have
do
that?
we know what percentage increase it is?
I don't have that. Was it around 600,000? I don't have the exact dollars.
So,
And they're set apart now from raises, you know, the cost of living raises for the rest of the employees. The step plan in and of itself is self-contained. Does that make sense?
yeah, but I'd like to see some numbers. I mean, we don't have a
Yeah.
clue what we're spending or proposing to spend.
Oh, okay. We've submitted the spreadsheet. Okay. Happy to get that for you, but I mean, it's here. We've submitted it, so.
Yeah, I would reference back, I believe when we were starting out the budget process, we've had a couple numbers on tracking that. I believe initially we thought the cost was going to be around $750,000 to move to the new step pay plan. And I know I'm not giving you the details, but I'll just fill in the broader scopes. Due to the vacant positions and things like that, some turnover, that cost has been lowered to $6 million.
Yeah, we've lost some upper echelon folks that have been in step for a long time that have retired, gone on, and so that number was reduced to. I don't have it's 600 and.
Yeah. I think also.
Josh?
I want to say the new step is around. I want to say the new step is probably around 660, 670 after we revised it after we had some people retire off. That wouldn't be in a step 4 or step 5 because they'd automatically go to a step 1 to replace them.
J.B. Johnson.
Am I correct? The current step program raises each level about 3.5% a year, 3.25%. Is that correct? Okay.
It's ballpark to that amount, but we also that's correct. But it depends if we're mirroring Fayetteville when we reevaluate. It really depends if they have moved, and they have. They did this last year, and that's the reason that we're here at this point, because it's been actually 3 years instead of 2 for the reevaluation because of our COVID year. Everybody kind of lost a year there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand. We're taking the base and stepping the base up, but then we're still bumping it to 3.25 or 3.5 or whatever the number is?
Are you talking about the base for all employees that you're talking about doing for the county? Is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm talking about that. How much difference is there between the current numbers and the numbers on that chart?
I think 3.5 is accurate.
Yes, yeah. The current, if you stayed with 2018, the step going up, if you stayed with that, would be about 350. So you're probably looking at about another 300,000. But if you stay on the current one, the issue that we come across is we'll probably have 15 to 20 people that won't receive a raise and haven't received a raise in several years.
But what's the overall percentage of the increase per step?
It depends on which, if you're a corporal, a DFC, or a sergeant, it could be anywhere between 2.7% up to, I think, 3.9. So it depends on what step you're at to the next one.
Because each position is valued at a different level. And just, you didn't ask this, but the situation with STEP is that when you've gone into your third year, last year we had about 19 employees that hadn't had a raise since the implementation. And then this year, without adjusting, we're going to have 21 or 2 that haven't seen an increase in pay since at least a year or two.
Any additional questions? JPS3?
My question's an easy one. How well has this worked in retaining the employees we've got some history here. How well has it worked? Thank you.
Overall, very well. The ones that Josh was talking about that we've lost have retired for the most part, upper ranking people that are the higher earners. That's what brought that number down from 750,000 to 660, somewhere in there. So our retention rates are better on the enforcement side. One of the reasons we're short on enforcement, in answer to an anticipated question, is that we can't draw from our normal group of folks that we promote from, and that's detention, because they're so short-handed. So we're a little short in patrol right now, and we've opened it up to the outside.
Any more questions? I think with personnel, the costs are always large. We've got some more items on the agenda tonight that are very large, but I think my concern with the step pay plan, which has nothing to do with the merits of it for the sheriff's enforcement side, is for many, many years the enforcement side's been made whole, and I feel like the rest of the county's fallen behind. And so, once again, I don't think that's what would you say, a comment on the merits of this particular one, but how do we ensure that the rest of the county is brought up to that same thing? So.
Yeah. You know, the step, you got to remember from a historical perspective, we were so far behind, and the danger is falling behind again, you know, when we made such significant steps, which is something we'll probably talk about later when we're talking about the resolution that I've brought before you. But this all has to do with parity and trying to make sure that our jobs are identified, the requirements are different, but the pay needs to be at level, because if it's not, it's a short drive from Clydesdale to Rock Street. And that's what we were experiencing before, and I'd sure hate to see us go backwards. So anyway, that's from my perspective. And anyway, thank you.
JP Ecke?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Down in the bottom of the chart, the Appendix B, it gives a brief statement on how you got to your calculations. It says step plan is based on an hourly rate of pay, with the total pay being calculated by multiplying the hourly rate by schedule hours of 2,080. Those are, I'm sorry, annual? Where did you get the 2,080? I mean, what's that?
2,080 is the standard number of hours worked annually if you based it on an 8-hour.
Based on an 8-hour a day
shift. Yeah, 40-hour week.
Okay. And then, but the for the ranks of deputy and major and captain, the sheriff's budget in the jail, law enforcement, it's based on an annual salary. determined by what percentage of the midpoint to use for each employee? Is that your discretion, or as far as which midpoint which?
Right, it would be mainly based upon that group that we've identified at the Fayetteville Police Department as well, their administrative staff, their upper command staff. So they're in the step, but they're not in the uniform step plan that's got they've got like you said, a mid-range and a top-out, so.
Certainly. But
What
you have
was
some
the
discretion over that, don't you, as the sheriff? I mean, I'd hope so.
I do have discretion in
your
some areas, but
employees.
you all have to pass any, is that what you mean?
Well, it's your recommendation. I mean, it's what I'm saying. I mean,
Correct.
wouldn't this be your recommendation because they work for you?
That's correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure that it wasn't just based on what Fayetteville is doing.
Right. Well, we have to have a measuring
Certainly you have to have a
stick.
template.
We have to
You're
have a
right.
measuring stick, a template, if you will. So, you're welcome.
Any further questions? Any more discussion? I'd entertain motions on the item.
Move that we pass this on to the full court.
I have a motion to pass with a due pass recommendation to the full quorum court by J.P. Esri, second by J.P. Simons. Any public comments? All those in favor? Those opposed? Item number 8 will move on to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Item number 9, an ordinance appropriating $4 million from the unappropriated reserves of the general fund to the general fund reserve in the Washington County budget for 2021. Treasurer Hill alluded to this a couple times in his comments, but what this does with the culmination of really good tax revenue throughout the pandemic, we're a blessed region that's kept up, and then couple that with some staffing issues we're having, the general reserve's pretty thick right now. And what this does is this would move $4 million from the unappropriated reserves account to our general reserve fund, which is essentially our savings account for the county. And I believe Treasurer Hill said that account currently stands around $7.5 million, and this 4 would be added to that. Now, I'll comment a little bit on this. This is a concept that was created by Treasurer Hill last term, in which we can set money aside, and I think the intention of this money is to fund capital projects and things like that in the future. It's a set aside. So we, as a quorum court, still have access to this fund, but it's essentially our savings account as a county that we can segregate and move out. J.P. Duncan?
I move passage of item number 9.
I have a motion to pass item number 9 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. A second by J.P. Johnson. Any questions or discussion? Yes, sir.
And I recognize that I'm not a committee member, but my question is, and I have to go into length to explain this, but road department money, would it remain in the road department or for the road department's use, even though it's in the general fund?
Yeah, this is a separate, totally, this is just the regular general fund for the county. Absolutely. Road department money is within the tax
So the
collector
unappropriated road department money would remain
stay in the road department, yes, sir.
Thank you.
J.P. Rio Stafford?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question is there some ratio that we're aiming for? Is there some, percentage, of our overall, annual revenues or expenditures that we're aiming for this reserve? Do we have a target for how much money that we're putting into this fund?
No, what we rely on there is the comfort level of our treasurer. He wants to have some balance in the general fund, the regular unappropriated general fund, to meet emergency expenditures and things of that sort, and he has set a threshold amount that he's comfortable with. I don't know that it's set in stone, but he wants several $1 million left in that account, and so that's the $4 million this time is the number he came up with that gives him a comfort level that we still have a fund balance still in the unappropriated reserves should something unexpected happen. Any more questions or discussion? Do I have a motion on this item? I'm sorry. We're already there. I'm sorry about that. How disrespectful to JP Duncan. Any public comment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Item number 9 will move to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Item 10, an ordinance appropriating $74,400 from the unappropriated reserves in the general fund to various line items in the Circuit Court 8 budget for 2021. This is the ordinance that we heard at the full quorum court last month that was moved to the Finance and Budget Committee. J.P. Lemming.
Yes, Diane's here, and I'd like for her to speak on what this money's for. She can explain it a lot better.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening. This ordinance comes before you. It's a proposal to build out the big spare room in the courthouse annex to house anticipated juvenile officers for Division 8. This idea was first proposed to the governing body in my initial justification letter for my budget when that was initially proposed. The decision was made to discuss the physical modifications separate and apart from salary positions, which is very logical. First, we need to know how many people we're talking about before we talk about the money that it's going to take to house them. The reason I'm hoping that this body will consider this request now, even though the final decision on staffing hasn't been made, is because of the calendar days that we have available before life begins. And if you look at the calendar, taking away holidays and weekends, we have 33 business days. January 6th of 2022 is staring at me, and I wake up at night thinking about it, because on January 6th of 2022, there are FINS cases on my docket. And on that day, I will need FINS officers to appear in my court, and they will need to operate from somewhere. So I am asking you to use 2021 dollars to get this process started. Some people have suggested that our court could make use of the materials that are being removed from the assessor's office. And I took a look at those. So far, what we have received from the assessor's office is 2 conference tables and a credenza, which is very helpful and useful, but insufficient for our purposes. I looked today at the other furniture that they have, and it might work. The cubicles back there might work, but I don't know. Someone needs to go look at what is in the assessor's office and then go look at the space in the annex and figure out if that stuff can work in my space, and that's fine. But this ordinance is asking the body to designate some money to build out that space so that when juvenile officers are designated for Division 8, they have a place to work. And we have 30 days, 30 business days. So if this isn't going to be the plan, then please tell me what the plan is. So that's what it does. This is designed to put in cubicles in the annex. It's a very bare bones project. It's cubicles, a computer, and a phone, and carpeting. That's what it's for. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for J.P. Warren? J.P. Johnson.
Yes, Judge Warren. The ordinance says that the court anticipates the addition of several new employees. How many employees is this build-out designed to accommodate?
10.
10?
10.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? J.P. Ecke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have you talked to Dwight Gonzalez about assessing the assessor's cubicles?
No.
Do you think that would be logical since he's the one that's probably going to do the build-out?
Well, okay. I'm learning how all this works. When I first started this process, I spoke to Dwight Gonzalez and I told him what I needed, and he gave me an estimate, and that's what's included here. So, I mean, we can certainly circle back around. I can have him go look at it.
That would be logical to me. I mean, if, to see what.
And shall
fits
I
and
do
what
that?
does-
I mean, is
I mean,
that-
that's your, I mean, I would say yes, because you're the one that has the most interest in all of this, and you need to know what kind of furniture fits. I mean, to me, logically, you'd be the one to do it.
I mean, I'm happy, if that's how it's supposed to work, I will ask Dwight.
Just ask him how much will fit and what's feasible.
Okay?
I mean,
if that's what I'm supposed to do, that's what I'll go do it. I'm happy to go do that, if that's the step I need to take. I don't remember the timing of when we got the information that the assessor had stuff that we could use. This proposal came in, my proposal started way before there was any suggestion that we could use the assessor's stuff. So, I mean, I have not gone back to him and specifically asked him to do that, if that's what I need to do. Please give me direction. I will do what this body needs me to do.
J.P. Simons.
Thank you, Chair. Judge Warren, assuming this gets passed, if the assessor's furniture is suitable for your needs, can we assume that you won't need all of these funds?
Probably not.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not looking to spend money here. There is an open room that has nothing. It's a concrete floor and an open room. I need somewhere for my officers to work. If you don't want to spend this money to build out the room and have another plan for where those officers can be housed,
Well,
then
I
let me know.
Take liberty of speaking for the whole body, but I think our whole goal is to, of course, outfit you and get you the tools that you need to do your job effectively. I think, speaking a little bit personally, I'm a little frustrated that I've gotten a lot of emails about this for several months now, and nobody has went and assessed the space, and we're not assessing what the assessor has given you. And I fully understand the timing issue. I totally get it, and it's very frustrating, I know, from your point of view, but I'm very uncomfortable that we're being asked to appropriate money that we're not even seeing a laid out plan for yet, and that really troubles me to see it, to not see that.
Gotten anything from the assessor yet. That we may not even get that stuff until January or February. We still need something by January 6th.
You need to step into the microphone, please. We have people who can't.
Well, I believe that we do. I sent over the 3 proposals that I've gotten, and one includes a schematic drawing. I've sent this to all the JPs, I believe. So you should have a schematic drawing of what I'm talking about. This is a schematic drawing of the cubicles that are laid out. It includes the price of carpeting. This is the schema that we're talking about. I'm not sure what you're asking for that I haven't provided.
No, I fully understand that, but what I'm saying is we have a furniture that can be moved, and what I'm saying is nobody's assessed that, nobody's updated this. We don't really even have a final staffing number from the budget standpoint of how many people we will be staffing. I mean, you've made it very clear that you have an assumption of what will happen, and that might very well be true, but until we have a budget with this proved staff, I don't know how we outfit and appropriate money for that number of people.
Okay, well, come January 6th, the court cannot function without officers.
Appreciate that. I have a mic queued. Am I missing it? Oh, I'm sorry. J.P. Madison.
Historically, when we've had judges with space issues, it's never fallen to the judge to deal with them. I don't think that Judge Warren was elected as a circuit judge to go out and hire an architect and look at furniture. Judges have always relied on buildings and grounds to do that. And I think she's gone above and beyond and has worked really hard with this body for the past 6 months to try to get what she needs. And so I don't think it's very fair to say on, November 9th, well, we're just not really sure you've done enough. Good luck. I think we owe Judge Warren and the people that come to her court, we owe them more than that, because we were all very big advocates for the new division of our circuit court. And she's been operating in temporary space without staff, sharing with Judge Zimmerman. And I think this court needs to put its money where its mouth is and give Judge Warren the space, the furniture, the minimal information she needs. And I don't think it's fair to send her away tonight and say, well, go see what the assessor might be able to give you in February. You guys, she's got a courtroom to run, and she's got people that are coming to court tomorrow. If she ends up being able to use hand-me-down furniture and doesn't have to spend $20,000 in the money, great. But let's not fault her for something that is not part of her job. Her job is to take care of the cases and the kids and the families that come before her. Her job is not to go out and buy furniture and hire an architect and pick out carpet. So she is trying her best to plan for an uncertain budget, which is what this body has given to her. So let's give Judge Warren the respect she deserves and help her outfit her courtroom.
J.P. Pond.
Without the chief of staff or the head of buildings and grounds here, either one, is there anyone here that could speak for them this evening and let us know whether this ball has begun to roll or not? Has anything been done? And what, how far along in the process are we? There's got to be a facility for offices. There's no one here to speak on that? Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Pond. J.P. Duncan.
I move passage of item number 10.
I have a motion to pass by J.P. Duncan and a second by J.P. Simons. Any further discussion or questions? Any public comments? Thank you. Appreciate you.
My name is Maeve Corto. I'm in District 15, and about 20 years ago, I had a son in Finns, and we already know that we need to enlarge the jail to receive people until they go to trial. But we really do. We need to take care of families in need of services. That's Finns. I don't know if anyone's ever been involved with Finns, but by the time a family is in that kind of shape, you need to have some action. You need to have things organized. So this is concerning that incarceration is moving along, but to do interventions for a young people and is absolutely important. COVID has put burdens on the foster care system and so forth, so I hope that whatever needs to be done does get done, and I thanks Judge Warren.
Any additional public comments? All right, we have a motion to pass item number 11 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Duncan, second by J.P. Simons. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Item number 11 will move to the full quorum court. I'm sorry. 10. I'm getting ahead of myself. Item number 10. Thank you, J.P. Lemon. Item number 11. An ordinance amending the ordinance 2021-96 to ensure compliance with the American Rescue Plan Act's eligible uses. Last quorum court meeting, we passed the COVID enhanced pay for the detention officers. After trying to implement that and going through that process, we got some feedback from the Comptroller's office, I believe, and some other people, the legal on the county side. And they believe these revisions are needed to make sure we are in compliance with the Act. And you can read those. We're moving from $3 per hour more to $150 bonus pay per week for weeks worked. So the intent behind all this is the same. It's the details of how it's being accomplished that are being moved around. So do we have any questions or discussion on item number 11? Any motions? I have a motion to pass item number 11 to full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Johnson. Second by J.P. Simons. Any further discussion or questions? Any public comment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Item 11 will move to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Item number 12, an ordinance establishing guidelines for the expenditure of American Rescue Plan Act funds. J.P. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I presume everybody has a copy of that in their packet. The intention of this ordinance is to allow this committee to determine, number one, what percentage of the American Rescue funds they would like to see used for something other than county purposes, sewer, and water. I've recommended 10% in here. The second item is, do we want to provide some support to local food banks now instead of later with a one-time payment? And I've outlined some entities that would receive some funds from that purpose if we choose to adopt this ordinance. The third would be to set aside $250,000 for those who have a home and COVID-related problems have caused them problems. It's like rental assistance, only it's for homeowners. And we've heard these two items of the hunger issues in the area and those that might have mortgage problems because of COVID mentioned. And this is just offering us an opportunity to accept this proposal, this ordinance, or to modify it. I've put in 10% for non-county purposes or water or sewer. If this body chooses to go to 15% or 5%, that would be up to this body. But I've just put something out there for us to look at and think about. I will call your attention to what I've put in on the food bank area. It looks like the Northwest Arkansas Food Bank is the big player in our area, and they kind of operate at the wholesale level and the retail level. They do some direct services, and they help the other smaller food banks. So that's why I have them in here at $110,000, and that's after talking to them, of course. And then I picked one pantry or food bank in each of the towns, meaning Fayetteville or Springdale. So I put in $25,000 for St. James, $25,000 for Feed the 479, and then an additional entity of the Salvation Army. So that's what I put in here. I realize this could go through that process we were talking about through county services, but it's probably going to be a month and a half to 2 months before any action would be taken on that. We are entering into the winter time, and if someone's in trouble on their mortgage, they're probably needing help now instead of later. So I offer this ordinance for your consideration and or modification.
Any questions or discussion? J.P. Simons.
Thank you, Chair. J.P. Wilson, two questions come to mind after reading this is, one, of those NGOs that address food insecurity, is this a proposed exhaustive list, or would it be open to other entities locally that might serve this need? And then the second question is, what about the NGOs that address other needs in the community other than food insecurity? Would there be a mechanism other than the proposed application process?
I'll answer the second question first, and that would be that if we're able to get this application process going, then other entities could ask for money, and but this does contain a kind of a cap for NGOs or non-county services, non-water, non-sewer of 10%. So of our 2021 money, that means roughly what, $2.3 million total. And what I'm offering here is $185,000 for food insecurity and $250,000 for mortgages that might be in trouble because of COVID. Now, what was your first question?
Is this an exhaustive list?
It is not an exhaustive list. In talking to the Northwest Arkansas Food Bank, they actually identified 7 entities, or food banks, if you will, that they interact with that they call transforming partners in Washington County. There were a total of 2 in Springdale and 3 in Fayetteville, 1 in Prairie Grove, and 1 in Goshen. And so again, just to try to have some help out in the county, I picked 1 in Fayetteville, 1 in Springdale, the large food bank, and the Salvation Army. So it was not exhaustive. And a modification person could take is just to say, well, we'll just do $10,000 for each of these smaller entities instead of the 50 to 2 of them. You could just go ahead and do 10 to each of those. That would change the total, obviously, but that would be a way it could be modified if you so choose.
J.P. Johnson?
Yes, since the inception of all of this free money, I have been very concerned about how we're going to vet the applicants and how we're going to follow up to just make sure they're following all the rules. Who's going to create the application? I've never heard an answer to that, and I suspect that when the money starts going out, the list is going to get real long, and I surely don't think it's this court's responsibility to take the applications and vet the people. And the other thing is, with the mortgage existence, could we get some heat assistance for the courtroom?
J.P. Esri?
Thank you very much. My question is, would the 10% or the 2.5 million or whatever it is, would that be in addition to these? This would come out of that fund. Is that what you're saying, suggesting?
These amounts that I'm proposing tonight would come out of the $2.3 million. So it's setting a cap, the 10% or $2.3 million, out of that, offering these suggestions of $250,000 for home or mortgages that might be in trouble, and the $110,000 for food insecurity as it is proposed. And again, that's subject to this body deciding to modify it if they so choose.
J.P. Esri, yeah, follow up.
So my question is that should we exhaust this money and there's still people out there, I would assume that we could go back and revisit this if we needed to at a later date.
We could, but again, at this time, we would be setting a cap of 10%. And I do want to point out that I have talked to the judge's office, not the judge himself, but someone in the office indicated that the current application process for rental assistance could be piggybacked for this mortgage assistance, if you will. And so that's what I think we would be doing, is using a piggyback on that system to receive applications for mortgage assistance.
J.P. Washington?
Thank you. So my question is, what is the rationale for the 10% cap? I know you mentioned that you just threw some numbers out there, but why 10%? Why not 20%? Why not 25%? Can you offer just insight into your thought process for a cap of 10%?
My perception is that the court has been interested in mainly looking for projects that will help the overall county. and that's what we've been looking at so far. We've bounced off of some of these subjects about should we put some money in some of these other areas, and this is just my offering for what we might start with.
Okay. May I ask a follow-up question, please? So you're saying that we would start there. So what happens, just doing some quick math, say for instance, someone's mortgage is $1,000 and the limit here would be 12 months. So we would only be able to help maybe 200 people. So if we decide that we need to go back, then where do we get the funds for to do that? So how do we decide there are 200 people we can help in a county of, I'm not sure what the population is. How do we decide who gets the help and if we go back and help them again, and where do we get those funds from?
That would be up to this body. It's a starting place. It's up to this body what they want to do in that area.
I'm done.
JP Duncan.
So if everyone remembers, on October the 4th, we had our county services meeting, and the whole meeting was based around this same discussion. So invited all JPs, also had Northwest Arkansas Economic Development District there to present. And the district presented on how they would do a non-governmental application process. So that would be a third party that would then actually vet the applications and make sure that all the requirements were met so that we wouldn't have to pay this money back, or in hopes that we wouldn't have to pay this money back in the future. They gave a great presentation by my account. And then after that presentation, the court sat around the same horseshoe and had a discussion around how we want to see these funds utilized. And maybe I'm having amnesia here, but my memory serves me that everyone was in agreement that we should utilize these funds for first county-specific related business. And then once we have further understanding of guidelines, apply some funding outside of county-specific, if there's funding still available. Again, we've got $23 more million coming next year. We've had this discussion, everyone I thought was in lockstep, and we said, let's wait until we see some final guidelines. So this ordinance came a little left field for me, and so I was surprised to see that. We already talked through another application process. We had full discussion on it. Actually had a lot of things in place to get the ball rolling if the court had decided to. We even talked about a percentage that evening of how much money we would set aside, and the agreement was to not do that at that time. So my opinion has not changed since then. So I'll be voting against this if there is a vote called, and I think that we should revisit first establishing, if we so choose, the body so chooses to have a percentage delegation to non-governmental. I think we should set up an application process on the front end before we start giving out money. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
JP Simons. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Have we heard back from the Northwest Arkansas Economic Development folks?
There's no outstanding question.
Okay, so the ball's in our court.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, they've done everything we've asked of them.
Okay.
JP Esri.
If I remember correctly, I think they had a fairly high minimum balance that they would, before they would do the vetting process. It was either 5,000 or 15,000. 50,000. I know that was the sticking point in that conversation. Oh, okay, sorry.
JP Duncan, do you have input on that?
Yeah, I'll chime in. So if those of you that didn't hear, JP Esri mentioned that there was a large minimum threshold application, and that was part of the discussion that we could make that decision. And that was honestly at my nudging to that group was, hey, we don't want to have 10,000 $1,000 applications. It's like the amount of time and the cost to vet a $1,000 application. it's not worth it. So let's set a minimum threshold. And then also organizations that are going to come and ask for larger sums of money are going to have the processes in place. They're going to have dealt with audit because they're going to have to be prepared to be audited and provide other information. So we don't want to deal with an organization that's, Bob and Ted's LLC that was formed the day before. We're hoping to deal with established organizations that are going to be ready and have things in place and be prepared to audit. Rather than it's death by 1,000 paper cuts if you open it up and it's a $500 request or $1,000 request. So yeah, that was my idea. Maybe it's a bad one, but it's my idea. Hey, let's have a minimum threshold of 50,000 because to me, if an organization can come with a plan in place and a request for 50,000, they probably have their ducks in a row and are able to support that. Or at least that would be the hope. And then the Northwest Arkansas Economic Development District would be able to vet through those applicants and weed out the ones who would not qualify. So that's where the 50K minimum came.
JP Madison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I will applaud JP Wilson for trying because I tried to do this with the CARES money. And I think that the public has grown very, very frustrated with us for talking about it or not talking about it, but doing nothing. So I commend you for at least offering a presentation to give us something to talk about. But I don't know how many months down the road, and we've given the public no real plan for how we want to spend this money. And as much as I'm grateful that JP Duncan had the committee meeting where he gave us all an opportunity to talk about it, I don't know how suitable it is for the quorum court to do all of that because we can't do anything unless we meet. Most of us have jobs, so we can't, spend all day doing it. I think that at some point we have to rely on the executive branch to help us to decide if we're going to contract with an outside entity and how to do that. And so I think we can come up with some general ideas for what we want to do, but at some point I think we need the executive branch to assist us in contracting and setting up systems, much like we've done with the rental assistance. But I don't think we can keep having a meeting where we sort of talk about it and then kick the can down the road. We're sitting on a lot of money. We've had the money for a long time. We've known we needed to have plans to spend it, and the public has every right to be frustrated with us for not doing better. I did have one question about JP Wilson's proposal. I'm not certain why it carves out water and sewer because I think that there's a difference between water and sewer, like the private subdivision that your ordinance that you tabled tonight raises versus, I know like when, it's been a long time, but I remember when we had a groundbreaking to where we got a federal grant to put water to an area of the county that didn't previously have water. And I think there needs to be some kind of distinction between public water and private water, and I'm uncomfortable carving that out without some definition for what that means, because it just says relevant. I think, yeah, it just says relevant water and sewer requests. And 90% of these funds is a lot of money. So I think we need to be really careful about what we carve out of that. I think if we're going to have public uses, we set aside money, and then private uses, and we set aside money. And whatever bucket you're in, that's what you fall in. But I'm not comfortable with water and sewer being carved out, or I think we'll have every person with a septic tank here want some of that 90%. So I thank you for continuing the discussion. I appreciate it.
Thank you, JP Madison. JP Rios Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to kind of note on, JP Duncan's statement that we were all in lockstep about putting off the partnership. We weren't. I actually voted against tabling that partnership. I thought we should have moved forward that night with partnering with the Economic Development District and moving forward with having them help us with getting some of these funds to non-governmental organizations and vetting them. So we were not all in lockstep that night. But the other thing I wanted to note also about this as far as the water and sewer is the infrastructure bill that just passed Congress this past week. There's going to be another round of millions coming to counties around the nation, including Washington County. You know, some of that money is specifically going to be put aside for water and sewer projects. So that might be something that we want to look at as a more, you know, restricted and appropriate use of the infrastructure money that's going to be coming. Grants there are going to be included in that. And so that way, hopefully we can use more of the American Rescue Plan money for other purposes. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Rios-Starbert. I have a couple questions for you, J.P. Wilson. One, are we for sure these entities can accept and report these dollars? My conversation, not necessarily to this ordinance, but in general with the judge's staff and particularly our county attorney, is no matter how well-intentioned the organization is or the project, they might not be eligible to accept the dollars due to the reporting requirements. Are we for sure all these meet that?
I didn't ask them that question, but certainly the Feed the 479, St. James, and the food bank talked about, I talked to all three of them about their needs in coming up with this. And none of them brought up that they would not be able to accept the money.
Okay. I see here about the mortgage payment, but in the ordinance, am I missing it? You're using a dollar value of $250,000. Is that listed in?
That's correct. A cap or a block of money of $250,000 for that purpose.
Is that written into the ordinance?
Yes.
Am I making a whiff here of where I need to see that? We've run too long. That's what that sound means.
Actually, it doesn't show up in this article.
Okay, and
But
finally,
250,000 was the intended amount.
are we?